Okay, this is the ingredients for our super soup. We're going to use some seaweed, and I got a couple of kind of mushrooms and fungus. These are both from the Asian market. All the stuff's from the Asian market, actually. This is some shiitake mushrooms, and then some mushroom seasoning, which is mostly just mushroom powder, and then there's some salt in there. It's all natural ingredients. There's black fungus, and then of course our seaweed, which is also very high in nutrition. And then we got a salt-free seasoning, all natural ingredients, no artificial stuff. Good for flavor. I mean, this is all herbs as well. Some garlic powder and some turmeric. And then I had these dried onions, wild onions that I was going to add, but I decided not to add them. They weren't drying out very well. So give that a quick blend so it's not too chunky. There's a little example of what it looks like. And I'll just go ahead and put that in a bag. Okay, here's the final product, all ground up and bagged up. And this is usually be ready to make into a soup. You can add noodles to it, or make some noodles beforehand and then add them to the blend. And because of the mushroom powder at the bottom, because there's some fine particulates in it, you give it a nice shake to make sure it's all mixed up before putting it in any hot water. I went ahead and added a couple more seasonings, paprika and red pepper chili flakes, so it's got a little bit of a spice to it as well. And this blend, add right to hot water. Boil it on stove for a little bit. I'm missing a couple of ingredients that I really wanted to add, which is nettles. Nettles is very high in minerals, nutrition, and then also some burdock root as well. And you can also just put some hot water in a thermos like this, and put the mix in, and let it steep for a little bit, 10, 15 minutes, and you have a really nutritious soup all ready to go. I wanted to add to that portion of the video on Super Soup that you can actually use this as, a good soup base. You don't just have to eat it, with plain. Like I said, you can add noodles to it, but also feel free to add, vegetables, your carrots, your broccoli, cabbage, your meats, whatever you normally would add to your soup. You kind of use this as a bouillon, like a chicken base or a beef base, except for this is a vegan version of that. So with that said, I'm going to get into the lesson here. Now, we did the lesson on, of course, making that soup, but we don't live off of food alone. Just like the scripture says here, I'm going to grab it. Matthew 4:4, and this is Yahweh Shai saying, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh. And that's a good scripture to segue into talking about fasting, because basically he's saying that, we don't just live off of food, we live off of things that feed the spirit, and this word feeds the spirit. And it's essential in this walk, and I've learned this the hard way many a times over, that the importance of fasting and humbling the spirit. And we fast for many different reasons, and I'll go ahead and let the scripture speak on that. But let me jump over here to Galatians. Galatians 5:17, where it says, let's start at 16. This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, So basically saying here that the flesh and the spirit are actually opposed to one another. They're against one another. The flesh, of course, uh, eats material things, while the spirit needs non-material things. The opposite of food, which is part of the fasting. We humble our spirit and kind of neglect the needs of the body. Basically, we're saying to the body, you know what, I'm not fulfilling your needs. I'm not fulfilling the needs of the flesh and these lustly desires. I'm going to fulfill the needs of the spirit right now with this fast, and also with prayer. But I'm going to get into that and reading this word, just as it says there. Yahushua said there in Matthew 4:4. Let me jump over to Isaiah 58:6. Slovakia here is having a little bit of a brain fart. Isaiah 58:6. And it says, "Is not this the fast that ye have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness?" Sorry, I'm going to go back. I'll start at 5. Is this such a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul? So we fast to afflict our soul, and which is strengthens the soul. Is it to bow down his head like as a bulrush? And a bulrush is it's like a grass that grows next to water, and it grows so tall that it starts to lean over. And you just imagine, we stand up. When we're standing up, to stand upright is kind of like a look of I don't want to say it's of pride. We'll just look at the opposite. When you're bowing down, you're looking humble, more humble. And to spread sackcloth and ashes under him, wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day unto Yahweh? Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loosen the bands of wickedness? So we fast to loosen the bands of wickedness on us, because it's the flesh that's being wicked. And let me go back to Galatians here and grab that, because he gets pretty deep into the flesh and what the flesh does. So I'll start at 17 again. "For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary to the one to the other, so ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if you be yet led of the spirit, ye are not under the law." I'm basically saying, when we are led by the spirit, there isn't a need for the law. When we're led by the spirit, the law is essentially the regulation of the flesh, because of what the flesh does. It's the flesh that causes us to go off and not follow after the spirit. I'll keep reading. At 19, "Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, immolations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like." And basically, these are, like it says, the works of the flesh are all these things which are contrary to the law. And this is what the flesh can provoke us to do, especially, if we are living so wickedly that we get covered with demons. The demons are just going to send us down that dark path of straight sin, wickedness, and completely disobeying the law. Which is why, this is one of the reasons why it's important to fast, is to connect back to that spirit and connect to the path, of righteousness. I'll read on at 22. "But the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law." See, and this is what it's saying, the fruit of the spirit. Again, when you are following after the spirit, the fruit of the Spirit are these beautiful things that, the reason why the law was created to keep us in this, keep us going down the path of the Spirit. So when when we're in the flesh, the law is there to guide us back to the Spirit. But if you're just going to, follow after the flesh, you're going to go off, and we're going to go off anyways, because we're in these fleshly bodies, and the fleshly bodies, they do just go off. It's really difficult. It's like it's impossible not to go off while we're in these bodies, these fleshly bodies. They're always going to go off. Reading on at 24, and they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. So I'm going to go over to let's go to Mark. We're going to talk about the need for fasting to expel demons and wickedness, like it says to expel those to break that yoke off of us, and to get rid of wickedness. But let's let Yahweh Shai describe the importance of fasting, what he did with fasting. This is we'll start at Mark 9 and 25. Then Yahweh Shai saw that the people came running together. He rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried, and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch that many said, He is dead. But Yahweh Shai took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could not we cast him out? Because they were trying to cast him out, and they're seeing that Yahweh Shai did it, and kind of perplexed. Well, how come you're able to do that, but we weren't? And then Yahweh Shai gets into it, reading on at 29. And he said unto them, This kind can only come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. So even Yahweh Shai says here, if you come across really powerful demons and spirits, the only way you can rebuke them is through prayer and fasting. And prayer and fasting, they actually go hand in hand. If you're going to take on a fast, then which we're supposed to take on fast, then you do so alongside with prayer. And let me get that. Let's just go to Tobit 12 and 8. So Tobit 12 and 8 says, prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. A little righteousness is better than much. A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. It is better to give alms than to lay up gold. So at the beginning here, it's saying that prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. So you got to be in the right spirit. Of course, pray when you fast, as it's the most effective time to pray. Yes, but to break those bonds of wickedness and to expel demons, but also be in the right spirit. What it's saying is being with alms, which is to giving, and with righteousness. Don't go into fasting unearnestly. Essentially, be earnest with our fast. Be earnest in this walk period. So, and speaking of fasting, so I went from talking about making this super soup with food, and then talking about not eating at all, fasting, but also take it upon yourself to do things that are not necessarily fasting, but not eating either. Let me grab that in the scriptures here. We're going to go to Ezra's second Ezra's 12 and 12 and 51, and Ezra is talking about, here he says, "But I remained still in the field 7 days, as the angel commanded me, and did eat only in those days of the flowers of the field, and had my meat of the herbs." And this is, when you get into the herbs, you get into the spirit of eating healthy. And this happens for me a lot. Sometimes the spirit will come on me to eat one thing, eat just one thing. So one day, I ate raw garlic, all day, and it really kind of upset my stomach. It wasn't a lot of garlic, but basically it wasn't a fast. It was more of a cleansing spirit that came over me, where I felt like I needed to purge some things out of my body with garlic. Or some days, it'll come over me just to eat raw stuff. I'm not going to eat anything cooked today, or I'm only going to eat a salad today, or I'm only going to drink water. And there's another fast, Lord willing. Maybe I'll get into doing a video on this, but there's been a few times I've done this where I've only eat watermelon. And I'll eat watermelon for days. I'll buy like 3 watermelons and eat a whole watermelon in a day. Cut it up into 2 or 3, and just eat that. And watermelon's very alkalizing to the body, and also helps, to purge the colon of of debris. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. Lord willing, this was edifying. Again, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Wahal Rachak Wadash, and Shalom.